Hello, welcome to day 2 of Open Presence. I'm Chris Kang, and I'm very happy to meet you here. So today, I'd like to give some pointing out instructions on releasing distraction. What do I mean by distraction? Now, commonly, when we use the word distraction, we might think of perhaps something happening in our environment that distracts us from doing what we want to do. It could be a loud noise. It could be someone shouting. It could be something very urgent that needs your attention. And as a result, you are pulled away from what you are doing right now. Or we could be thinking about something quite small, like you're sitting here, you're trying to read a book, and then you're distracted by the buzz of a mosquito, or you're distracted by an itch on your leg because you've just been bitten by a mosquito. But in this setting, this context of open presence, when I say distraction, it means more than these things. Sure, external circumstance, a loud noise, quarreling neighbors, a mosquito, all of these things can distract us from being aware and awake right now. We can get carried away with reactivity, with feeling irritated or angry, or feeling upset. But when I use the word distraction, I use it to mean more subtle things like you are wanting to be meditative, to be mindful, to be aware. And then all of a sudden you find that you are imagining things. You might be fantasizing about something about to happen in the future. You might be remembering something that happened in the past. You might be regurgitating a traumatic memory. You might be imagining the worst case scenario for the future. And all of a sudden, you are lost in the grip of worry and fear. And you did not even notice how that happened. So distraction can come in many forms, and it can come in a very subtle way. Sometimes distraction can also be very pleasant. We might be in the flow of awareness. We are consciously conscious of who we are. We are open, we are present. But suddenly, there's something quite pleasurable happening. You might be watching a movie, and it is extremely pleasurable. And before you know it, you are completely entranced by the storyline. Or you might be enjoying a meal with a good friend, and then the conversation gets interesting, it gets highly exciting, and before you know it, you are lost in that storyline of the conversation, and you've been taken for a ride through that storyline and lost touch with your aware presence. Now, such instances of distraction may not be immediately distressing, but nevertheless, we might find ourselves drained of energy and losing touch with that deep sense of vibrance, peace, and wakefulness, the wakefulness of our innate presence. So, what I like to suggest is learning the art of releasing distraction without resisting them and without indulging them. Not indulging, not resisting, simply releasing in that quiet, gentle, soft, fluid way, flowing back into that knowing. Because you see, in the moment of distraction, you are still experiencing. In the moment of distraction, you are still conscious, although you may not be fully conscious that you are conscious. Nevertheless, consciousness, knowingness is present in every situation and in every moment of experience. So even in the experience of distraction, be it a loud noise, be it something external, or be it something subtle, like your own imagination or your own regurgitation of a past memory, in that very moment of distraction, knowingness is there. So all that is required is to simply recognize the knowing, vibrant quality within that distraction. That in every moment of distraction, whether gross or subtle, your knowing nature pervades it. So simply release and rest in that knowing, in the midst of distraction. And that means distraction is no longer a problem. What a wonderful way to be. Even your distraction becomes food for your open presence. Now, as you are recognizing your awareness moment by moment, a certain spaciousness arises within your experience of life. A certain unencumbered sense of being alive is there. And when distraction happens, this distraction can be allowed to happen within that sense of spaciousness. There is enough space in your mind for all experiences to arise. Let's unlearn this habit of resisting and unlearn this habit of indulging and learn to simply be, to simply be open and aware in every moment of distraction. And that is possible, eminently possible, because distraction itself is an experience, and within that experience is the experiencing, and that experiencing is none other than your innate knowing. And that innate knowing is who you are. So never for a moment are you separated from your aware, vibrant being. When you remember this, when you recognize this, immediately there is a sense of liberation, a natural, unforced liberation. It's not something you need to acquire, not something you need to strive for. It is simply each moment, however fleeting, of recognition, of releasing, and that being repeated many, many times. And soon enough, you'll find that your recognition, your releasing, your knowingness becomes like a flow, like a river flowing brightly, sparklingly, without any obstruction or hindrance. So even the so-called hindrance of distraction is brought onto the flow of the river of your awareness, being open, being present, and releasing again into that open presence. So there you have it. Distraction becomes food for your open presence. One final point. In our everyday life, there are times when we might feel really tired and the mind feels dull and heavy. What then? What happens to our open presence then? Does it mean that we have lost our open presence and are completely overwhelmed by tiredness and dullness? No, not at all. Even when we feel tired, even when we feel dull, even when we are falling asleep, even when we are asleep, our knowingness is ever present. We might not be consciously conscious to the same intensity when we are dull or when we are drowsy or when we are asleep, but nevertheless, consciousness remains ever abiding. For without consciousness, we wouldn't be alive. So there is no need to panic. Simply remember again and again, even in dullness, even in sleepiness and drowsiness, your open presence, that is your aware being, that is your knowing nature, is ever present. And the moment you recognize that is ever present, you can touch that ever present knowingness in the midst of dullness, in the midst of drowsiness. And as far as possible, releasing and relaxing into that knowingness even as you fall asleep. So in this way, whether it be distraction, whether it be drowsiness, there is no problem, there is no suffering. So thank you. Thank you for practicing this with me. Thank you for being present, even as I am present to you. So dear friend, be well, be openly present, be knowingly knowing. Right now, right here. Till tomorrow, day 3. Namaskar.